Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from asortofinterestinlife.com. I've been riding a Mango Bikes Fixie for well over a year now, put in a good few thousand miles. I've done a few different videos and reviews on the bike, but I still get plenty of questions. So, without further ado, let's stop looking up close at my ugly mug and have a look at my ridiculously outrageous coloured bike. And here, my friends, she is. As you can see, it is pretty much as I describe it, a very divisive colour scheme that I've got here. Some people love it, such as me, but a lot of people certainly aren't fans. Anyway, going into the frequently asked questions, the first thing that I get a lot is there a lot of maintenance to do? And the first thing I always point out is, if we have a look on the handlebars at the front here, you can see apart from the lights, the only feature we've got is this one single lever for the front brake, which as I ride it as a fixie, in the UK at least, the law requires each wheel to have its own brake, but on a fixie, the pedals themselves are basically accepted as the rear brake, so that's definitely something to think about. I wouldn't necessarily say if you do ride it as a fixie, take the back brake off first straight away, because it's definitely handy while you're getting used to it to have that extra backup of a back brake. But because I don't have that, that obviously means there is one less brake to have to fiddle with every now and then. As you can see, we've got the empty part on the back there. The only thing that riding it as a fixie does mean is that obviously my feet are always going on the pedals, and quite often there's a lot of pressure put onto the chain. So what I was doing was letting the chain get looser and looser and looser, and then finally I would fiddle around with the back, loosen it up, and then tighten it to get the chain tension correct again. But that finally backfired, and it's not what I recommend at all, when the chain became so loose at one point that even on a fixie the chain would come off, and then one day managed to get somehow unhooked and brought around to the point where one of the links actually snapped. So that was lesson learned. So what I tend to do now is basically every month, every couple of weeks, just loosen the back wheel off and redo the chain tension as I go, so that doesn't lead to an excessively loose chain. So that really is the only proper maintenance. Obviously every now and then I need to change the tyres when they wear through, and really apart from that it's just a little bit of oil on the moving parts that you would normally expect on a bike. But in comparison to my previous mountain bikes, this is very little maintenance indeed. We've got some of the local ducks come to see what's going on. Oh yes, for anybody who's unfamiliar with my videos, as a lot of the people who find them through my biking videos are, then yes, I do live on a little narrowboat, and as you can see, we're out here in the lovely countryside of Shropshire as usual. Anyway, check out my other videos for more on that. Let's step across this field and have a further look at the bike. In fact, as we pick this up, it might be a good point to mention the general weight of the bike. Now, I've had a few questions about this, and basically what I did the other day was give this a proper independent weigh-in with obviously the lights on it and the mudguards, and the actual official independent weigh-in weight that I will give is 12.3 kilograms of the actual riding weight of this bike plus lights. Obviously the lights and the mudguards aren't adding much weight on, and you are losing the weight of the back brake when I've taken that measurement, but 12.3 kilograms is not the lightest bike in the world, considering that it hasn't got any gears, etc. But similarly, if you're coming like I did from mainly riding mountain bikes and things like that, this is still probably going to be one of the lighter bikes that you'll have ridden. And it definitely helps for taking it on and off the good old stern of Tilly there, as we have her in that nice little dramatic pose there. I'll say the mudguards that I've got are the ones off the Mango Bikes website. I'm not necessarily going to say they're the best ones in the world. They have this rather bizarre way to attach, which I think if I'd got proper ones that would attach maybe under the brakes and things like that, they might be a little bit more secure. And you can see, to stop the rubbing on the back, the rear mudguard is quite high up, but they're quite easy to adjust. As you can see with this nice simple thing here, it's easy to move them around and fiddle about with them to get them to not rub. So I'm not sure, I wouldn't say they're the best, but equally on bikes like this or road bikes with minimum clearance, I've had proper road bike mudguards that go the full length right the way from the chain pretty much right the way around to the back of the wheel, and similarly mudguards on the front that go from there right down to the sort of bottom quarter there. And even with proper designed minimum clearance mudguards, I found that on the front brake on my Carrera Virtuoso, I literally couldn't get the mudguard to go underneath the brake itself, so that was literally a useless front mudguard. And I'm not sure which brand they were off the top of my head, but that's definitely an expensive way to find out that lesson, so I'm always very cautious when it comes to advising about mudguards. Now, one of the biggest questions I have, obviously living on the boat and being surrounded by places like this, is how is the bike to ride off-road? And given that a good deal of my biking is done on proper middle of nowhere backcountry lanes and towpaths such as this, it's got to be said that it's not ideal. It's definitely just falling into the same category as any other standard road bike with thin road bike tyres and wheels on. The 700C, as you would probably expect. But when you're coming down paths like this, and this, I've got to tell you, is pretty good condition compared to some of them, which I'm sure we will cut to in the video any second now. It's something that I would say, riding it as a fixie in particular, I obviously don't have the ability to just rest and put a little bit of bounce in my legs to take the shock. So that means obviously the back tyre and the back wheel in particular is taking a lot of the bumps and a lot of the weights of, well, random things like that sticking up out of the towpath. But I would say the wheels themselves are still pretty true and pretty round, so they're sticking up well to a good year and a bit of punishment. It's just a case really of when it gets a little bit wet and a little bit muddy in places like this, you obviously have no grip whatsoever pretty much, and you do find sometimes your wheel or your rear wheel will be spinning around. So that's definitely one to think about and one to consider. But if you're just biking around in the cities or just general town roads, you should be absolutely fine with it. Before we move on to the final question of what bike lights do I use, I should point out that this is obviously in no way designed to be an off-road bike, so you've got to give it some forgiveness. Anyway, the bike lights that I use, the main ones that I have are these slight adjustable, like sort of focus and wide beam front lights. Now these I bought with one red backlight, all as a pair, as a set, a trio if you will, of lights off eBay, and they are extremely bright. You've got two brightnesses and flashing on those ones. They were only about £5 or £6 including delivery, hardly anything at all, less than 10 quid, I know that much, and they are extremely bright, especially if you fetch the beam into focus, because you can literally focus the beam into a perfect square of light with really defined edges, which is quite a strange one. But the backlight I didn't get on with at all well, because obviously my legs are always moving. I find that I kept, because it was one of the standard wide backlights, I kept bashing it and it kept taking down over time and falling off. So you can see there's still a little bit of residue from some of the sellotape that I had holding it on. Anyway, for UK viewers, I went to Wilko's and found this set of silicone front and rear lights. You can see the front one on there. Now these ones are obviously much smaller, much lower profile. I wouldn't say that the front light is perfect for lighting anything up if you're in extremely dark conditions, but if you're going around well lit towns, it'll certainly be enough to get you noticed. But if we put this on, it's very difficult obviously to demonstrate to the camera, but the rear light in particular I think is extremely bright. Now on these, I think they were £4.99 from Wilko's, which I think is an absolute bargain personally. You've got concentrated or steady beam and then two different types of flashing beam there, and obviously with them being nice, simple, low profile, they're well out of the way when your legs are flying around on the pedals, and they are nice and easy to clip on and off. So those are definitely a tip for UK viewers. I'll say on that note, if we have ourselves a look up at this absolutely stunning evening here, say thank you very much for watching. Check out my other videos for loads of bike ride commentaries and all sorts of other things, a lot of outdoorsy stuff, kayaking and walking and goodness knows what else up and down a mountain. Obviously, plenty of narrowboat life videos to check out too. Feel free to like the Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, or even add me personally on Facebook too, for plenty of photos and general boaty updates. And until the next time, if you're really interested in my boat life, check out my Kindle books, The Narrowboat Lad and A Narrowboat and a Notebook. And until the next time, have a fantastic day, keep it cycle worthy, and well, hopefully you'll get some of this incredible weather, and farewell.